for being here. Today we honor and celebrate the life of a beautiful and loving lady I am proud to call my aunt. Aunt Reggie enriched my life in so many ways, and there's so much we learned from her. Aunt Reggie was one of 9 children, born in Naugatuck, Connecticut, to 2 Polish immigrants. She and my mother were 2 of the younger siblings, separated by 2 years in age. They were not only sisters, but friends. Their close bond lasted through the years, and because of that, I was fortunate to spend my life sharing many fun times, creating wonderful memories with Aunt Reggie, Uncle Vic, and Trish. Aunt Reggie was a woman of faith. She attended church regularly, on holy days of obligation, went to confession, and prayed the rosary. I imagine it was her faith that carried her through the deep sadness of losing their son Gary at the very young age of 16. I first met Aunt Reggie at her mother, my grandmother's funeral, in August of 1964 in Connecticut. I was 8 months old. At that time, I also met one of the greatest blessings Aunt Reggie and Uncle Vic gave to me, my cousin Trish. From that moment, our 2 families were inseparable, even though we were separated by over 1,000 miles. Trish and I were the same age, and my sister Doria only a year apart. That made for an instant friendship and bond, not to mention loads of fun, mischief, and pranks throughout the years. Aunt Reggie's priority was to give Gary and Trish the best life possible. She wanted them to have a fine education and experience the arts, culture, and adventure. She and Uncle Vic always had a boat and taught Gary and Trish the love of boating. In the early 70s, she and Uncle Vic bought a vacation home on the Cape. Later came the house and property on the Barrier Islands off the coast of Florida. Auntie always wanted to make sure there was a destination spot for family to gather and for Trish to have experience great adventure and fun. She hosted many family gatherings where all her siblings, nieces, and nephews would gather. She spent summers on the Cape, shared holidays with her and Uncle Vic's extended families. They took family vacations and numerous trips to Disney World, all in the spirit of enjoying life to the fullest. Aunt Reggie was a vibrant and incredible woman with many accomplishments. First and foremost, she was a loving mother and wife. In addition to raising a family, she was an artist, an art teacher. She had a long-term career as an executive secretary. She managed the rental properties, and she was the best at throwing parties and entertaining. When Uncle Vic became legally blind in his 50s, she took on more responsibility by having to handle all the things he could no longer do. Auntie Reggie was always on the move. You rarely saw her sitting down, and that meant we were on the move too. She enjoyed decorating her home and did everything by hand. Why? Because she truly enjoyed it, and she had the talent and drive to do so. Nothing stood in her way. She would sew elaborate curtains, valances, and bedding, upholster furniture, hand paint stencils on the wall, paint the inside of the house. She painted their entire bathroom's wall with 4-inch stripes with spot-on straight lines. She maintained a beautiful garden. She built furniture, cut down trees. She knew how to drive a boat, dock a boat, load and unload it on a trailer, and do every handy woman project around the house. It seems there's nothing she couldn't do. She was an original do-it-yourselfer. She lived out the slogan way before Nike, just do it. And when she finally rested at the end of the day, you would find her watching her favorite TV show, Judge Judy. When she had guests, she always made time for happy hour. As the evening approached, she would say, let's have some wine and cheese and some crackers. Well, when we were young, she and Uncle Vic, my parents, aunts and uncles, would set out to the dock on the lake in their backyard. Since everything Auntie did was always top-notch, one would expect a fine bottle of wine to accompany their snacks for happy hour. They would typically ask one of us kids to fetch a bottle of wine from the wine bar. So we did. We went to their bar. grabbed Auntie Reggie's staple choice of wine, the best wine for her taste, a gallon jug of Carlo Rossi. She loved that wine, always added an ice cube. She simply didn't see the value in spending more than a few dollars on a bottle of wine. We teased her all the time about her choice of cheap wine. Her talent as an artist is remarkable. One of her paintings, titled Home from Market, is a true masterpiece. If you see the painting, you would think it was from an acclaimed, world-renowned artist. The detail and realistic look is unbelievable. In her retirement years, she spent time in Florida painting watercolors. The detail and perfection of her work was equally impressive. She would paint some of the detail with one bristle just to get the perfection in which she strived. She was a perfectionist in anything she did. One time at their home in Florida, she decided to make several bird baths for the backyard. Well, she was very creative and very thrifty. She didn't go to the store and buy a bird bath. She bought some concrete mix, mixed it with water, and used the lid from a garbage can as a mold for the bird bath. Well, after it was finished setting, it was time to place the bird bath on an old tree stump in the backyard. So we went outside, and she found the perfect spot. We set the bird bath. She looked, and she just wasn't satisfied that it wasn't straight. Well, I was a teenager, and I thought it was crazy to spend all this time trying to set a bird bath perfectly level. I just wanted to go back and do whatever I was doing. So I tried to convince her that it looked fine and the birds wouldn't know the difference. Well, she wouldn't hear it. The next thing I know, she went back in the garage and came out with a 24-inch level. She simply wasn't going to be happy until she knew that bird bath was spot on level. Well, a few years ago, I put a bird bath in my backyard, and I wasn't happy when the water was listing to one side. So I used her trick. I went in down a level, and I laughed to myself, thinking, there were so many little things we picked up from her over the years, even though at the time, I thought it was crazy. Another thing I remember about my Aunt Reggie is that we made a lot of sandwiches over the years. Every time we ventured out to the beach or boating or to a park and day trip, we had to pack sandwiches. Well, we would be excited and all ready to go, and then we heard those dreaded words. We need to pack sandwiches. Well, when you're a kid, this chore was in the way of us having fun, and it wasn't a quick task. There were at least 9 of us, 6 in my family, 3 in theirs, and sometimes other relatives. But off we went to make sandwiches. Oh, and she had to make sure everyone had exactly what they wanted. We would have to go around everyone and ask mayo or mustard, ham or turkey, cheese or no cheese, lettuce, and of course she added those bread and butter pickles she always loved. But she knew best. Shortly into our day, we would devour those sandwiches. So fast forward to many years later when she was 82. She traveled by herself to Italy to meet my family for a vacation in Sicily. She arrived first, so we told her to stay at the gate and we would come find her. Well, we found her sitting there quietly, people watching. After we greeted her, we asked how her flight was. She said the flight was okay, but the food was lousy, and she would never fly that airline again. Naturally, we thought she might be hungry, and we asked if she'd like to have something to eat. She said, no, I'm fine. I was able to eat. I packed a sandwich. Of course she did. One of Aunt Reggie's legacies will be the family gatherings on the Cape. From her, we realized the beauty of the Cape and all that it offers. My parents would take my brothers, my sister, and myself to the Cape each summer. We would go blueberry picking and clamming, and then she would spend hours cleaning the clams, shucking the clams, grinding them in an antique hand grinder, and making the most delicious baked stuffed clams and clam chowder you would ever taste. My brothers definitely gained their love of these delicacies from their time on the Cape with Aunt Reggie and Uncle Vic. We took regular visits to the Cape Cod Colonial Candle Factory, the penny candy stores, and the Christmas tree shops. We used pieces of cardboard and slid down the sand dunes in Truro. We dined at Baxter's, and we spent day after day at Corporation and Mayflower beaches. These are the memories I'll carry through my life, and that I am forever grateful I was able to share with Aunt Reggie. At age 81, she was elated to become a grandmother. She loved Natalie and Gary so dearly. They were the light of her life these past 10 years. She just wanted them to share her passion to laugh and enjoy life. One time when I called her, she was laughing and telling me how she was just in the backyard playing with the kids, climbing a tree. I think she was 84 at the time. One of Aunt Reggie's frequent sayings was, "Oh, for heaven's sake." She would typically say this to express surprise, like when you called and she wasn't expecting it, when you arrived for a visit, or if you brought her a little something. She would say, "Oh, for heaven's sake," as if to say, "Oh, you shouldn't have," or "Look who it is." Well, the last time I saw her was in November, and although she wasn't talking much for quite some time, when I hugged her and she recognized me, she clearly said, "Oh, for heaven's sake." It made me smile. The Aunt Reggie as I knew her was back for a moment with one of her familiar sayings. "Well, Auntie, we're going to miss your smile and your zest for life, and you will forever be with us in spirit each time we visit the Cape. Your kind soul will stay with us forever. We are all blessed for knowing and loving you. Let us rejoice in knowing that Aunt Reggie lived a full, adventurous, fun, honest, down-to-earth, good life. And let us take comfort that she is rejoined with her loving husband, Uncle Vic, and her beloved son, Gary.